What if one prayer could change your life forever? What if there's a way to pray that could bring you peace, healing, and a deeper connection with the Creator? We've all prayed, but have you ever stopped to ask yourself, am I really praying the right way? There's a better way, a way that Jesus himself revealed, and that could change everything for you. Think about it. What's the one thing you'd change in your life right now? Is it the stress of financial struggles, the pain of broken relationships, or the weight of anxiety that holds you back? Whatever it is, Jesus showed us a way to connect with God that brings lasting peace and freedom. In this video, we'll uncover what most people get wrong about talking to God and show you how to pray with power, purpose, and peace, just as Jesus taught. One of the most common mistakes people make when they pray is rushing into their requests. But Jesus begins his teaching on prayer in Matthew 6:9 by saying, "Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name." Matthew reminds us here that prayer begins with worship. When we say, "Hallowed be thy name," we're recognizing God's holiness, his greatness, and his authority over all things. Hallowed means sacred, set apart, and worthy of reverence. Think of Moses at the burning bush in Exodus 3:5. When Moses approached, God told him, "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." That wasn't just about the physical space, it was about acknowledging the sacredness of God's presence. When you pray, start by focusing on who God is. Say, "God, you are holy. You are my Creator, my Father, and my Provider. I worship you for who you are." This shifts your perspective and prepares your heart to connect with him. Prayer is not just about asking, it's about honoring the one we're speaking to. When you begin with worship, it changes the way you approach everything else in your prayer. Another common mistake people make is treating prayer like a list of demands. But Jesus teaches us in Matthew 6:10 to pray, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven." Matthew teaches us that prayer is not about convincing God to do our will, but about aligning our hearts with his. Think of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. As Matthew tells us in 26:39, Jesus prayed, "Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thy will be done." Even though he was facing unimaginable pain, Jesus trusted that God's plan was greater than his own. When you pray, try saying, "Lord, I trust you. Even if things don't go the way I hope, I know your will is perfect. Help me to surrender my plans and align my heart with yours." This isn't always easy, but it opens the door for God to work in ways you can't yet see. Trusting his will brings peace, even in the middle of uncertainty. Another mistake people make is letting worry take over their prayers. Jesus tells us in Matthew 6:11 to pray, "Give us this day our daily bread." Matthew teaches us that prayer is about trusting God for what we need today, not getting caught up in the fears of tomorrow. Think back to the Israelites in the wilderness. In Exodus 16, God provided manna each morning, but only enough for that day. If they tried to gather more, it would spoil. This was a lesson in daily trust, relying on God one day at a time. When you pray, focus on the present moment. Say, "Lord, I trust you to provide what I need for today. Help me to let go of my worries about tomorrow and trust in your faithfulness." Daily dependence on God reminds us that he is our provider. It's a powerful way to build trust and deepen your relationship with him. One thing many people don't realize is that holding on to unforgiveness can block their connection with God. Jesus teaches us in Matthew 6:12 to pray, "Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors." Matthew emphasizes here that forgiveness isn't just something we ask for, it's something we give. Jesus explains this further in verses 14 to 15, saying, "If you forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses." Think of the parable of the unforgiving servant in Matthew 18:23 to 35. The servant owed his master an enormous debt, but was forgiven. Yet when someone owed him a much smaller amount, he refused to show mercy. The master was furious and said, "Shouldn't you have had mercy on your fellow servant just as I had on you?" Forgiveness isn't about excusing someone's actions. It's about freeing yourself from bitterness and making room for God's grace. When you pray, ask God to help you forgive. Say, "Lord, I release this person to you. Heal my heart and help me walk in your grace." Letting go of unforgiveness opens the door to healing and peace. When it comes to prayer, many people forget that we're not meant to face life's challenges alone. Jesus reminds us in Matthew 6:13 to pray, "And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil." Matthew shows us here that prayer isn't just about asking for blessings, it's about seeking God's help in our battles. Temptation can come in many forms: the temptation to give up, to act out of anger, or to stray from God's path. Whatever it looks like, we're not strong enough to face it on our own. Think about Joseph in Genesis 39. When he was faced with temptation from Potiphar's wife, Joseph didn't try to manage the situation himself. He fled, trusting God to guide and protect him. His faith in God's help kept him from falling into sin. When you pray, ask God to guide you away from situations that might lead you into trouble. Say, "Lord, I'm not strong enough on my own. Help me stay on the path you've set for me and protect me from anything that could harm my faith." This part of prayer is a reminder that God is our shield. He's not asking us to fight life's battles alone. He's asking us to trust Him to lead us and deliver us. Jesus also teaches us that prayer should be personal and intimate, not a public display. In Matthew 6:6, He says, "When you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." Matthew is showing us that prayer isn't about impressing others. It's about building a real relationship with God in the quiet moments. In a world that often seeks attention and recognition, this reminder is more important than ever. Think about Daniel in Daniel 6:10. Even when praying to God was illegal, Daniel went to his room, opened his windows toward Jerusalem, and prayed 3 times a day. He wasn't trying to be seen. He was simply devoted to his time with God. Find a private space where you can connect with God. It could be a quiet room, a peaceful corner, or even a walk in nature. Say, "Lord, I'm here. I want to spend this time with you. Speak to my heart." When prayer is about connecting with God rather than performing for others, it becomes a source of strength and transformation. One mistake people often make is thinking they need to use perfect words or follow a strict formula for their prayers to matter. But Jesus teaches us in Matthew 6:7, "When you pray, do not use vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think they will be heard for their many words." Matthew is reminding us that prayer isn't about how much we say or how polished we sound. It's about sincerity. God doesn't want a performance, He wants honesty. Think of Hannah in 1 Samuel 1:10-13. She was so heartbroken as she prayed for a child that her lips moved, but no sound came out. Eli, the priest, thought she was drunk, but God saw her sincerity and answered her prayer with a son. When you pray, don't worry about saying all the right things. Just be honest with God. Say, "Lord, I'm struggling and I don't have the words. Please help me." God sees your heart and He values your authenticity over any polished phrases. Prayer is a conversation, not a performance. Speak to Him with the same honesty you'd share with a trusted friend. Another mistake many people make is doubting whether their prayers are heard. Jesus encourages us in Matthew 21:22, saying, "Whatever you ask in prayer, believing you will receive." Matthew shows us here that faith is the foundation of prayer. Without faith, it's easy to feel like your words are just floating into the air. But Jesus teaches us to trust that God hears every word and is already at work, even when we can't see it. Think of the story of the woman with the issue of blood in Matthew 9:20-22. For 12 years,